Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 28 of the 40-day Maimonides on Teshuvah program, where we're going through the entirety of Maimonides' laws of Teshuvah in preparation for Yom Kippur. So we're now beginning chapter 7, which in many ways is really where the book could have begun. There's a lot to explore in terms of thinking about the structure of Maimonides' laws of Teshuvah and Maimonides' works in general. I haven't quite understood why he puts all of this great material here in the 7th chapter. In many ways, it's the most motivational material for a definition of tshuva. But nevertheless, it flows with the system he's set up, and let's go into it right away. 7.1. Since the power of tshuva is granted to everyone, as we have described, a person should strive to do tshuva and cleanse his hands of sin, in order that he die as a master of tshuva and merit the life of the world to come. So the connection with the previous chapter is that, hey, you have the choice. It is up to you to do tshuva. And you will be rewarded or, God forbid, blamed, depending on how you choose to relate to tshuva. So therefore, obviously, you want to be rewarded. You want to prepare yourself for the life of the world to come. And even though, we tend to be so involved in our daily lives, thinking about, well, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? I have to worry about this bill. I have to worry about that child, all those things going on. The reality is that, God forbid, the end can come very suddenly for any of us. God forbid, lo aleinu. And you want to be prepared for that. And this is what we will see again in the second halacha here. A person should always consider himself as if he were close to death, as if his time had come, and that he remains immersed in his previous wrongdoing. He should therefore do tshuva for his sins immediately, and not say, when I become old, then I'll do tshuva. Perhaps he will die before he becomes old. This is as King Solomon said in his wisdom, let your clothes be white at all times, and let oil not be absent from your head. So the idea here is obviously that, there's going to come a time of judgment. And although it's frightening to contemplate it, thinking about one's own mortality is definitely not a healthy exercise to engage in excessively, but it nevertheless can be a motivation for saying, well, I've got to straighten myself out because at any time this could happen. And what will be said of my legacy if I don't clean it up? And I have to do it really right now. And you may remember, your mother when you're a little kid telling you, you have to put on clean clothes in the morning because you never know what might happen. So that's essentially the root of this is in Solomon's statement here that you should make sure your clothes are clean, make sure your clothes are white, and make sure that your head is anointed with oil. That was a sign of royalty and wealth and luxury for many. Oil was used quite extensively in the ancient world, and it's actually a sign of you anoint a king, Mashiach even, with a bit of oil. So it's a little bit hard to understand in our society where we use water so extensively for cleanliness, and the oil is strange. But nevertheless, in this context, the idea is you should always look good. In other words, you never know when the paparazzi are going to be along. You better be wearing your tie, that kind of thing. You got to be ready. And that's especially true with tshuva. You don't want the IRS to jump down your bank accounts and all of a sudden show, wait a minute, what's going on here? You want to make sure that everything is in order so you have nothing to be worried about. Okay, let's look at 7.3. Do not think that tshuva is only relevant for sins that involve a physical act, such as illicit sexual relations, theft, or fraud. Just as a person must do tshuva for acts of this nature, so too must a person examine his harmful attitudes and do tshuva for them as well. He must do tshuva for anger, strife, jealousy, mockery, the intemperate pursuit of money and honor, inappropriate pursuit of fine food, and so on. These are sins, and they are even more serious than those which have a physical action. For when a person is immersed in such thoughts, it is difficult to separate from them. Thus it is written in Isaiah, let the wicked abandon his way, and the sinful man his thoughts. So the emphasis here in the proof text is that it's not just what you do. Ultimately, we are measured by what we do. But when it comes to tshuva, we're also measured by what we think. There's a lot of interesting halachos, which we talked about briefly in the first chapter of this book, that you can only be punished if you actually do something. Thinking about something, if you never act on it, eventually it disappears. Some minor exceptions to that rule, which are too detailed for us here. But if you do act on something that you have been planning for a long time, then you get punished for the thoughts as well, because that's ultimately a premeditated act. So what Maimonides is saying here is like thought control. Take the reins of your mind and try to direct, those wild horses to a goal that's more appropriate to what you want to achieve. Okay, that's it for the beginning of the 7th chapter. Let's start tomorrow with continuation of it. Thank you very much for listening.